Hey everyone, in today's episode I'll discuss some cheap Perth suburbs. It's an episode that's been requested by a lot of people, and it's simply because the market's moved so much in recent years, and I agree with that. It's just insane what's actually happened. So a lot of people won't consider many Perth suburbs cheap, but these genuinely, are cheap for what's going on. The things we'll get into today are very simple. First of all, just what drives the Perth market. Second of all, the minimum purchase price for Perth. And then we'll just get into some cheap suburbs. So under 750k, 500k doesn't exist anymore. 750k to 1 million, 1 to 1.5 million, 1.5 to 2, then $2 million plus. So look, what drives the Perth market is different to other cities. So first of all, like everywhere else, demographics does drive the Perth market, but also employment and facility hubs do as well, and that's in particular pockets of Perth. Lifestyle triangle is a big thing, so the time it takes to go to work, to the time it takes to go to school, and lifestyle precincts and back home, that's the lifestyle triangle. Two things you need to consider is the shortage of set supply and excess demand. There's a lot of land and new estates being built around Perth. And then finally, longer term residents. So that's not common in all parts of Perth. Look, your minimum purchase price in Perth now really is $650,000, and it is very suburb specific. This has already moved literally $50,000 since my last video. So that's less than a year ago, and it's moved more than $50,000. So, you really need to get in as soon as possible if you're thinking about it. If you have that absolute minimum budget, Let's get into it anyway. Under 750,000, let's start with a suburb called SHA Water. So look, SHA Water is a suburb in sort of Rockingham, so it's just about 40 or so K south of Perth CBD, 40, 50K south. Look, SHA Water is a seaside suburb. It's basically the point of Rockingham, should I say, and it's surrounded by beautiful waters like this, so you can see just, that's sort of the just bay and outer reef and the rocky foreshore there. A lot of people just pull up, go for a swim, go for a snorkel, go for a fish. A lot of people go looking for crays around there. Really good suburb for that, great lifestyle suburb. And it is easily, like I say in this just photo here, it's easily Rockingham's best location. So you can see the place it occupies right by the SHA Water Islands Marine Park. You can't get a much better location than that. There's a boat ramp just in nearby Safety Bay. So look, really, really good suburb. It's up towards about the $700,000 mark, which is pretty cheap for where it's at. It actually hasn't grown as much as its neighbouring counterparts, which is really good because it does tend to be a bit of an older money suburb and have a little bit higher income demographics, which is good. A lot of long-term residents actually happen to live there too, which also adds to the demand. Look, another suburb I want to consider for people is a suburb called Noam Mara. So look, this is actually just close to Perth. It's not overly far away from Perth either. Look, Noam Mara is a lower income demographic suburb, definitely, but in saying that, it is actually, and I'd say most definitely, surrounded by better suburbs and more expensive suburbs in every way. But the reason I really like this suburb is it's actually not necessarily because of price or anything, should I say, like having more expensive sort of surrounding suburbs. It's actually because it's a cheap suburb that's non-mortgage belt. Now, what do I mean by that? Look, your mortgage belt suburbs generally, right, are suburbs where they have a large sort of proportion of home buyers that are first home buyers or have very high LVRs. Noam Mara, funny enough, isn't one of those, which is very rare in Perth. So this is just off Census 2021. You'll notice here that you got a median weekly household income of $1,492 and then median monthly mortgage repayments of $1,582, which is crazy because it means that basically a week someone can nearly afford their mortgage repayments, which is quite rare in a quite, should I say, cheap suburb. It's not a new estate in Perth, right? So you're not going to find that in many places, particularly throughout this whole boom, but this is definitely a suburb that longer term will probably do pretty well. You can find suburbs that are cheap under 750, don't get me wrong, they're new estates, but longer term they're going to be much worse affected than somewhere like Noam Mara. So just consider that. Definitely, in my opinion, these two suburbs are your best under 750,000. But just reach out if you don't know what you're doing, because you do need to buy in certain pockets and certain actual asset types and certain sort of layouts of homes in these suburbs for it to be appealing. 750k to $1 million, and this really does surprise me that this suburb still sits there. And the suburb is called Inala, and I know it sounds funny. I've actually spoken before the principal at Inala when I used to be in the corporate world a little while ago, but well, not a little while, a few years ago, should I say? But I actually used to do work out here sometimes, fly over there. But anyway, Inala, look where it is. It's basically, it has a major shopping centre, and it's right just in from Scarborough. Really, really good suburb, in close to Mossman Park, not far from Joondalup either, so the main employment regions of Perth, should I say. But look, if you just look at its location, I mean, again, it neighbours Scarborough, pretty much the Bondi, of Perth, and Mossman Park, which is both a blue and white collar sort of industry area. One of the main employers in Perth. It's obviously not far from the CBD either, not overly far either from, Joondalup. So close to everything, close to your good lifestyle areas, close to, your golf courses, your should I say, lifestyle precincts of like Cottesloe as well, not far from Mount Lawley either. So really, really good location, Inala. Another suburb, it does bother me to say this because you could have picked it up if you had reached out, at the time of my last video for under 750, but it is no longer that anymore, because I was talking about this when it was around $740,000. It's a suburb called Rivervale. So look, Rivervale is basically just south east of the CBD. Rivervale occupies literally a river frontage part of the Swan. But look, it basically is right next to the Optus Stadium, neighbours Burswood, which is where the Crown Casino is. Really good location. It's 6Ks from the CBD. I've talked about this non-stop. It's already done literally like nearly 100 grand in literally the last year in growth, but it's still got more to go because it's got the right demographics to do so. Now, if you look at here, this is just, so on the left, Rivervale is also considered a part of it as Victoria Park and Belmont back then, but in 2006, but it's solely the Rivervale suburb now. You'll see the income demographics. So Victoria Park is actually a high income demographic suburb, mind you, and you'll see in 2006, the personal income was only $476. Now it's $1,015, and it's doing better than the Australian average in terms of both the actual, should I say, the sheer number and the actual growth rate. So that's something that's really good, and that's only continuing the suburb, especially in the top end of the suburb. It's doing very, very, very well, and it's changing completely. Like, there's a street that even people consider to be Millionaires Row in Rivervale, which was never a thing in the past, but now you get places selling above 1.2 million and easily any day of the week, not even taking it to market. So this suburb is going to continue going up. So don't be too late to the train, because please reach out if you want to get into the suburb, because you're going to struggle in the longer term, and it's still got legs in it, most definitely. So consider Rivervale as well for under $1 million. Let's get into $1.5 million. And the first suburb I'm going to mention is I find it still insane that it is priced like this, is the suburb of Scarborough. So for people that don't know Scarborough, look, it's basically, I'd say, probably Perth's best known beach, most definitely. It's actually been a part of some surfing championships before, and surf lifesaving, actual world championships and nationals. I think every 10 years or so, there's at least one that's generally held at Scarborough. It's probably the best known surf club, that, and I'd say Trig, probably, which is just north of it, in all of Perth. But Scarborough really, first of all, it's surrounded by much more expensive suburbs. City Beach to the south of it's like $2.5 million. Trig's around it's probably about 2.2 to the north of it, which surrounds Scarborough. Even if you go west of it, Scarborough's only just more expensive than Karrinyup and just more expensive than Inala as well, which I think happen to be cheap as well. But Scarborough as well is just known as the Bondi of Perth. So it's known as basically your place to be, your place where everyone goes for a coffee in the morning, a run in the morning, probably aside from Cottesloe, and your surf beach basically of Perth. That's what it's known as. It's also got sort of a village area that's quite good. So it's one of the few locations in Perth, especially for people not from Sydney and Melbourne, that happens to be open, later than 8 p.m. on a weeknight. It's really only sort of some parts of the CBD, Mount Lawley and some parts of Cottesloe in Perth that are open. Look, a few places in Fremantle are too, but very few. Scarborough is open most weeknights. Like, there's restaurants open to 10 and 11 at night, believe it or not, up there. So that's another thing, but it's such a good location for, you're still picking them up for like 1.2 million. So it's not, I'm not even pushing this. It's actually like fairly cheap in terms of that level as well. Let's get to another suburb. So this also surprises me. The actual suburb of Fremantle is actually, believe it or not, still between 1 and 1.5 million. So if you look at literally just like North Fremantle or anywhere like that, or any of the other suburbs that happen to be along that sort of, like, I'd say southern, shore of the Swan, they generally are like 1.7 plus million. Like, they're so expensive. Like, so many of them are so expensive. So Fremantle, you're still picking up for, like somewhere between about 1.15 and about 1.25 to 1.3 million. And it's probably like, I'd say a bit of an old school, really nice town centre. Like, you've got, like, obviously the frontage there, you got really nice port, you got nice cafes on the front, you got really nice sort of just places to walk, even go just jump in the water, go fishing, that kind of thing. You can see the ports from there. It's just across really the bridges from the main parts of town as well. It's not far from Canning Vale, so Canning Vale is kind of like your sort of blue collar sort of job hub of Perth. So for people that don't know Perth, so it's a really good location. It's completely landlocked. There's no more land supply. It's like more than 100 years old. So like, it's a really good sub. And look, you just look at the pocket here it occupies. Like, if you just look at like Armadale, Bicton, North Fremantle, straight across the water as well, you're all the most expensive suburbs, and Fremantle's so much cheaper than all of them. So look, just consider it. Oh yeah, I get it, Hamilton Hill is cheaper further south, but you don't have the same demographics in Hamilton Hill as you do in Fremantle. Fremantle's are quite good, so definitely consider Fremantle. Look, another suburb I do want to consider for people, and I find it crazy that it's still priced around $2 million. And this is in the upper bracket. So, so mind you, I should say, first of all, we are now in the $1.5 to $2 million bracket. But that suburb is Claremont, and Claremont occupies, probably one of the best locations in all of Perth in terms of demographics, long-term sort of residents, and old school money, and even great school zones too. You'll see this is where it is. So you can see obviously the golf course and obviously the main thoroughfare that runs through Claremont here. Such a good suburb, like really such a good suburb. And look, the schools that are alone, just basically in Claremont alone and just around it are, Christchurch Grammar School, that actually happens to be in Claremont, and then right next door is PLC and MLC, and you'll find a lot of the mining magnates and all of the wealthy residents send all their kids to school here. There's not many houses for sale here. I'm not going to lie, I have put it in this bracket, but you'll be very lucky to get something for under 2 million here. You probably need probably 1.9 to 2 million is realistic, but you can still get in for under it, and you're very lucky too. So definitely consider Claremont if you have that kind of money. Look, another suburb I'm just putting in here, and look, the reason I put this in here, and you actually still can purchase this for under 1.5 million, believe it or not, but I'm putting it in 1.5 to 2 million because I've gone the upper sort of quartile, well, not the upper quartile, but the absolute limit of 1.5 to 2 million here. And that is Alfred Cove. So you can still pick this up for, a very good house for 1.5 million here. And look, Alfred Cove is a very small suburb on the southern shores of the Swan, but it is very beautiful. It's actually very low density as well. I'll get into that in a sec, but it occupies a really nice sort of frontage of the shore, very quiet, lots of parking, a lot of families in this suburb as well. But the reason it's very good, and this is the part I was just talking about, is because it's primarily a house suburb. So if you look here, detached homes alone make up nearly 80% of the suburb, and close to 98% of the suburb alone is either houses or detached homes, detached homes, semi-detached or townhouses, right? Now, most of those, mind you, there's not many townhouses in this suburb here. So I'd say 90 to 90, probably 5% of these are actually houses in this suburb. So it's very low density. So what that does is it means not much stock is actually going to be rebuilt, because all families and people that want to live in detached homes live here, right? So the reason for this being such a good suburb to buy in is because these sorts of suburbs generally have long-term residents, because families live in there, and generally high income demographics. So examples of this, I'll give you two, for example, in other cities. In Brisbane, Kalinga, very high income, very high growth. Another one, Kooyong in Melbourne. Very high income, very high growth, should I say, both of them. Now, both of them have almost only detached homes, and the reason they have such good growth and income is because of that. So Alfred Cove is definitely a good suburb to consider in that. Let's get into suburbs above 2 million that I think are quite cheap. And sorry for Perth residents, but these are cheap for Perth. And first of all, that suburb is Swan Bur. So for people that don't know Swan Bur, look, it's basically right next to City Beach, very close to Claremont as well. But it's surrounded by, extremely expensive suburbs. Swan Bur's literally in the low 2 mils. You can still pick it up at that. And it is such a good suburb, near all the good schools, close to City Beach, close to Scarborough, close to Mossman Park, not overly far from the city, close to Gosnells. Really, really good location. But if you look at so Swan Bur has a beach, like you could see in the previous photo, but it's also a premium beachside pocket. It has a nice village. So this is just downtown sort of Swan Bur. And you see, it's not you kind of city village, but it's you kind of I'd say chill beachside village. That's what it's kind of like. So you got cafes, a few little nice restaurants, just, a few little nice supermarkets, sort of all those, trendy kind of shops that people kind of like. So that's what you get in Swan Bur, and you don't really have that in many parts of Perth. So really good suburb to consider with that as well. Finally, let's finish off with one of the more premium ends of town, and that area is Mossman Park. Now, Mossman Park is very expensive. It's in your mid $2 to $3 million range. So don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but for where it is and what it surrounds, it is very cheap. And this is some of the frontage of the Swan that Mossman Park has. So you'd be surprised that that's even Perth, because you'd think that'd be somewhere like Sydney's eastern suburbs or something like that. It looks like the eastern suburbs, or even maybe the lower North Shore and Middle Harbour of Sydney, but that's actually Mossman Park, believe it or not. So that's what the area that it occupies. But it's literally one of the most expensive areas of Perth, but it's still under $3 million, which is insane. And it neighbours the Monaco of Perth. So the Monaco of Perth's Peppermint Grove. So famously years ago, it was called that by one of Australia's billionaires, right? Now, the thing about Mossman Park is as well, because it neighbours basically Gosnells and also Peppermint Grove, you've got really wealthy people who then can't buy there that want to buy Mossman Park, but Mossman Park almost has the exact same frontage as both of those suburbs. So this is just a domain article that you'll see here, and it just says why the Mossman Park property market is a magnet for Perth's well-heeled residents. And that's the reason, because it surrounds all the good schools, the good beachfront suburbs, the best, most expensive areas. So everyone wants to live there. So definitely, if you have that budget, still under $3 million, consider Mossman Park. And these areas are going to close out the cycle very well. I'm telling you right now, the areas with better demographics will close out the Perth market cycle extremely well. But anyway, I'm getting to the end of this video. For everyone that's watching, just please subscribe to this channel. I really thank you for watching, and stick around to my website for Premier Properties. I've explained what this is in previous videos. It's basically properties with a total return, so 30-year capital growth plus gross yield of 13%, and that's upfront yield 13% or above. The reason you want this is because your internal rate of return is higher, and longer term, this will make you a lot of money and long-term sustainable wealth. That is the reason you want it. So if you want to reach out and have a consult with me, just find the link below and go book it through my website. But again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a great day ahead. Cheers.